For many adults over 55, coffee is not just a beverage, it's a ritual, a quiet moment in the morning, a familiar aroma, a daily reset. But what if your morning coffee could do more than simply wake you up? What if, with one simple addition, it could help influence the way your body manages blood sugar, supports fat metabolism, and even strengthens the internal environment that protects your cells as you age? Now, let's be clear. This is not about miracle cures. It's not about reversing disease overnight. And it's certainly not about replacing medical treatment. But metabolic signaling matters. After 60, cancer risk increases. Belly fat becomes more stubborn. Recovery slows. Energy fluctuates more than it used to. Most people assume this is inevitable, just part of aging. Yet what many don't realize is that inside your cells, powerful repair programs still exist. They respond to signals, and small daily inputs, repeated consistently, can influence those signals. By the time we reach the end, you'll understand why most people drink coffee every day without activating its full biological potential. Because it's not just about caffeine, it's about what you pair it with. But before we talk about the ingredient, you need to understand what's happening inside your cells after 60. Let's ground this discussion in biology. As we age, our stem cells, the cells responsible for repair and tissue renewal, do not disappear. They decline in responsiveness. Think of it as a dimmer switch turning down, not a light turning off. At the same time, something called inflammaging begins to develop. This is the slow, chronic, low-grade inflammation that increases with age. It's not dramatic. You don't necessarily feel it. But over time, it interferes with cellular communication. Insulin resistance also becomes more common after 55. When blood sugar remains elevated for longer periods, insulin levels rise. Chronically elevated insulin suppresses certain repair pathways and promotes fat storage, particularly visceral fat around the abdomen. And here's where it becomes important. Visceral fat is not just stored energy. It is metabolically active tissue. It releases inflammatory chemicals that further disrupt stem cell signaling and cellular repair. Over years, this metabolic drift, inflammation plus insulin resistance, creates an internal environment that increases vulnerability to chronic diseases, including certain cancers. Now let's be responsible and clear. Supporting the cellular environment is not the same as curing disease. No spice, no beverage, and no single ingredient replaces proper medical care. But improving metabolic signaling does matter. What most people over 60 don't realize is that your body still runs powerful repair programs. They just need the right signals. When inflammation decreases and insulin sensitivity improves, those repair programs become more accessible. And that brings us to one of the most powerful metabolic switches in your body. Inside your body, there is a master regulator known as AMPK, adenosine monophosphate activated protein kinase. You don't need to remember the full name. Just understand its role. AMPK is your cell's energy sensor. When energy is low or when the body detects the need for efficiency, AMPK switches on. And when it does, several important things happen. Fat burning increases. Glucose uptake improves. Inflammatory signaling decreases. AMPK also supports a process called autophagy, your cell's internal cleanup system. Through autophagy, damaged components are broken down and recycled. This process becomes less efficient with age, yet it remains one of the most powerful natural defense systems your body has. Healthier, well-regulated cells create an internal environment that is less chaotic. And less chaos means fewer opportunities for abnormal cell behavior. Now, let's clarify something responsibly. This is not about starving cancer in a literal or simplistic way. Cancer is complex. It involves genetics, immune surveillance, and multiple pathways. What we are discussing is metabolic terrain. When glucose signaling is excessive and inflammation is high, cellular growth signals are amplified. When blood sugar is stable and AMPK is activated, growth signals are moderated and repair pathways are supported. It's about reducing excess fuel and inflammatory noise, not about miracle cures. Small daily habits influence these switches. So how can your morning coffee enhance this pathway? Here it is. The ingredient that can quietly upgrade your morning coffee: Ceylon cinnamon. not just any cinnamon, specifically Ceylon, often called true cinnamon. This distinction matters. Most grocery store cinnamon is cassia cinnamon, which contains higher levels of a compound called coumarin. In large or frequent amounts, coumarin may stress the liver. Ceylon cinnamon contains far lower levels, making it more suitable for regular daily use. Now let's talk about why cinnamon is metabolically interesting. Multiple studies suggest that cinnamon may improve insulin sensitivity. When insulin sensitivity improves, your body requires less insulin to manage blood sugar. Lower insulin levels mean fewer fat storage signals and less inflammatory stimulation. Some research also indicates that cinnamon may help reduce fasting blood glucose levels in certain individuals. While the effects are modest, over time, small improvements in glucose regulation can translate into meaningful metabolic shifts. Cinnamon is also rich in polyphenols, plant compounds that provide antioxidant support. Oxidative stress contributes to cellular damage and interferes with proper repair signaling. By reducing oxidative burden, cinnamon helps create a more favorable cellular environment. And here's where it becomes especially relevant to our earlier discussion. Improved glucose stability may indirectly support AMPK activation. When blood sugar spikes are less dramatic, metabolic switches operate more efficiently. That means better fat utilization, reduced inflammatory signaling, and improved metabolic flexibility. Metabolic flexibility is the ability to shift between burning glucose and burning fat smoothly. With age, this flexibility declines. Cinnamon may help restore some of that responsiveness. Let's be very clear. This is not a cancer treatment. It does not cure disease. It does not replace medical care. But by supporting metabolic terrain, stabilizing glucose, lowering inflammatory noise, and enhancing antioxidant defense, it contributes to an internal environment that favors cellular balance rather than chaos. How do you use it? Add 1/2 teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon to your brewed coffee daily. Stir thoroughly. Avoid boiling it directly for long periods, as excessive heat may degrade some beneficial compounds. For better absorption, consider pairing it with a small amount of healthy fat, such as a splash of unsweetened almond milk, a teaspoon of olive oil, or a small amount of grass-fed butter if tolerated. And here's the truth. Most people sprinkle it occasionally. Very few use it strategically. When used intentionally, consistently, and responsibly, cinnamon becomes more than a flavor enhancer. It becomes a metabolic amplifier. But cinnamon works best when paired correctly. Before we go further, it's important to understand something reassuring. Coffee itself is not the enemy. In fact, high-quality coffee contains powerful plant compounds, particularly chlorogenic acids, which function as polyphenols. These compounds have been studied for their antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. Research suggests that coffee consumption is associated with a lower risk of certain metabolic conditions, including type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease, when consumed in moderation and without excessive sugar. But the benefit is not simply from caffeine. It's not the caffeine alone. It's the metabolic signaling. Caffeine can mildly stimulate AMPK activation, encouraging your body to mobilize stored energy. Chlorogenic acids may also help slow glucose absorption from the digestive tract, leading to more stable blood sugar responses after meals. Now, when you combine coffee with Ceylon cinnamon, something interesting happens. Coffee already supports mild metabolic activation. Cinnamon supports improved insulin sensitivity and glucose regulation. Together, they may create a synergistic effect, enhancing metabolic flexibility and reducing sharp glucose spikes. This matters especially after 60, when insulin responses become less efficient and visceral fat tends to accumulate more easily. Your daily cup of coffee becomes more than stimulation. It becomes a delivery system, a ritual that supports metabolic balance instead of disrupting it. And because coffee is already part of your routine, this upgrade feels natural, not forced. Now let's talk about what this combination may influence over time. After 60, fat loss becomes more complex, not because your body is incapable, but because your hormonal signals have shifted. At the center of fat storage is insulin. When insulin sensitivity is strong, your cells respond efficiently. Glucose enters cells smoothly, and insulin levels return to baseline quickly. But when insulin sensitivity declines, which commonly happens with age, insulin remains elevated longer. And elevated insulin signals the body to store fat, especially around the abdomen. Stabilized glucose levels lead to lower insulin spikes. Lower insulin spikes make it easier for your body to access stored fat. This is where the cinnamon and coffee combination becomes relevant. Cinnamon may improve insulin sensitivity and reduce post-meal glucose surges. Coffee's polyphenols and mild AMPK activation may encourage fat mobilization. Together, they create a metabolic environment that favors fuel flexibility rather than constant storage. And remember, visceral fat is not passive. Visceral fat releases inflammatory cytokines. These inflammatory signals interfere with stem cell responsiveness, impair mitochondrial efficiency, and contribute to metabolic decline. Reduce visceral fat, and you reduce inflammatory noise. Reduce inflammatory noise, and you improve cellular communication. By the time visceral fat becomes obvious, metabolic damage has been developing quietly for years. That is why small, consistent adjustments matter, not extreme dieting, not punishing exercise, but daily signaling that nudges the body back toward metabolic balance. You are not forcing fat loss. You are removing barriers to it. But metabolism is only one part of the story. Now, we need to address something carefully and responsibly. Many abnormal or rapidly dividing cells rely heavily on glucose for fuel, a phenomenon often referred to as the Warburg effect. In simple terms, certain cancer cells tend to favor glucose metabolism even when oxygen is available. They thrive in environments where sugar availability and growth signals remain high. This does not mean that sugar alone causes cancer. Cancer is complex, involving genetics, immune function, environmental exposure, and time. But metabolic environment matters. When blood sugar is consistently elevated and insulin remains high, growth signaling pathways become more active. Chronic inflammation adds further stress, increasing oxidative damage to DNA over time. Stabilizing blood sugar does not starve cancer in a literal sense. That would be an oversimplification. What it does is reduce excessive growth signaling and inflammatory fuel that can contribute to a chaotic cellular environment. AMPK activation plays a regulatory role here. When AMPK is active, the body shifts toward energy efficiency and cellular repair. Growth signals are moderated. Autophagy improves. Cells become more disciplined in how they use fuel. Cinnamon and coffee both contain antioxidant polyphenols. These compounds help neutralize oxidative stress, reducing DNA damage and supporting healthier cellular function. Let's be absolutely clear. This combination does not treat cancer. It does not replace medical therapy. It does not cure disease. What it may do is support metabolic terrain, the internal conditions that influence how cells behave over time. And terrain matters. Small daily inputs can either contribute to disorder or to regulation. So how do you use this safely and effectively? Preparation matters. First, choose Ceylon cinnamon, often labeled as true cinnamon. Check the packaging carefully. This reduces unnecessary exposure to higher coumarin levels found in cassia varieties and makes daily use more appropriate. Use 1/2 teaspoon per cup of brewed coffee. That amount is sufficient to provide metabolic support without overdoing it. Add the cinnamon after your coffee has been brewed. Stir it thoroughly. Avoid boiling the cinnamon directly in high heat for extended periods, as excessive heat may degrade some of its delicate compounds. Because some of cinnamon's beneficial components are fat-soluble, you may enhance absorption by pairing it with a small amount of healthy fat. This could be a splash of unsweetened almond milk, a teaspoon of olive oil, or a small amount of MCT oil if tolerated. The goal is not to overload calories, simply to improve bioavailability. Morning use is ideal. Early in the day, your metabolism is naturally more responsive. Pairing cinnamon with your first cup of coffee aligns with your body's natural rhythm and may support more stable glucose patterns throughout the day. Consistency matters more than intensity. This is not about doubling the dose, it's about daily repetition. Now let's structure a simple 7-day activation plan. Let's make this structured and realistic. For the next 7 days, add 1/2 teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon to your morning coffee daily. Do not change 10 other variables at the same time. Keep your meals balanced and consistent. Include protein, healthy fats, and fiber as you normally would. This is not a detox. It's metabolic recalibration. After your largest meal of the day, often lunch or dinner, add a simple 10-15-minute walk. Nothing intense, just steady movement. This helps your muscles absorb glucose more efficiently and supports insulin sensitivity. Hydration also matters. Drink adequate water throughout the day unless you have fluid restrictions from your physician. Dehydration can raise stress hormones and distort hunger signals. During these 7 days, observe, do not obsess. Notice your energy in the morning and mid-afternoon. Notice your appetite between meals. Notice whether sugar cravings shift. If appropriate, measure your waist at the start and again at the end of the week. You are looking for patterns, not miracles. Small changes, slightly steadier energy, fewer cravings, subtle waist reduction are meaningful signs that metabolic signaling is shifting. Momentum builds from consistency. You are not shocking your system. You are retraining it. To amplify the results. If you want to strengthen the impact of this simple coffee upgrade, layer it with intelligent lifestyle signals. First, consider a 12-hour eating window. For example, finish dinner by 7 p.m. and have breakfast at 7 a.m. This gentle overnight fast allows insulin levels to fall and gives AMPK more opportunity to activate. It's not extreme fasting. It's metabolic breathing space. Second, protect your protein intake. After 60, preserving muscle becomes critical. Muscle tissue improves glucose disposal and supports metabolic stability. Include a quality protein source at each meal unless medically contraindicated. Third, prioritize sleep. Poor sleep increases inflammatory markers and disrupts insulin sensitivity. No spice can compensate for chronic sleep deprivation. 7 to 8 hours of consistent restorative sleep amplifies every other positive signal you send your body. Fourth, reduce refined sugar and ultra-processed carbohydrates. Cinnamon supports glucose stability, but it cannot override excessive sugar intake. Remove the major disruptors first. Finally, incorporate resistance training twice per week. Even light-strength work improves insulin sensitivity and supports stem cell responsiveness within muscle tissue. Remember this. Small daily signals reshape cellular behavior over months. You are building metabolic resilience, not chasing rapid results. However, not everyone should use cinnamon freely. Before adding cinnamon to your daily routine, a few important precautions. If you are taking blood thinners, consult your healthcare provider first. Cinnamon may have mild blood-thinning effects, and combining it with anticoagulant medications should be done cautiously and under supervision. If you have liver conditions, the type of cinnamon matters even more. Cassia cinnamon contains higher levels of coumarin, which in large amounts may stress the liver. This is why Ceylon cinnamon is recommended for regular use. If you are on diabetes medications or insulin, monitor your blood glucose carefully. Cinnamon may improve insulin sensitivity, and adjustments to medication should only be made under medical guidance. Be aware of allergies or sensitivities. Although uncommon, some individuals may experience digestive discomfort or allergic reactions. And most importantly, if you have a current or past cancer diagnosis or any significant chronic illness, always consult your physician before making dietary changes intended to influence metabolic pathways. This approach supports metabolic terrain. It does not replace medical treatment. Responsible action builds sustainable health. Let me share a realistic example. Let me give you a realistic example. A 70-year-old man decided to add 1/2 teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon to his morning coffee each day. He didn't overhaul his entire lifestyle overnight. He kept his meals balanced, added short walks after dinner, and focused on consistency. During the first week, he noticed something subtle: fewer mid-morning sugar cravings. By the third week, his afternoon energy felt steadier. He wasn't reaching for snacks as often. After about 4 to 6 weeks, he measured his waist and found it had decreased slightly. Not dramatically, but enough to confirm that something was shifting. He also reported feeling lighter during his walks, less sluggish after meals. No miracle transformation. No extreme weight loss claims. Just steady metabolic improvement. And often, that's how meaningful change begins. And this is where your decision begins. Aging is not cellular shutdown. It is a shift in signaling. Your body still contains extraordinary repair systems. Your metabolism still responds to cues. Your cells still listen. But the signals must be clearer, steadier, and more intentional than they were decades ago. Daily rituals matter. You already drink coffee. You already begin your day with a routine. By upgrading that routine with one simple strategic addition, you are choosing to send better instructions to your body. Not extreme instructions. Not desperate measures. But intelligent, consistent signals. You are not trying to outsmart aging. You are working with your biology. You are someone who protects your future, not with fear, but with discipline, not with hype, but with knowledge. Tomorrow morning, when you prepare your coffee, pause for a moment. Add the cinnamon, stir it intentionally. And remember, longevity is built in quiet decisions repeated daily. Small signals, long-term strength. Your cells are listening. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. How old are you and where are you watching from? And tell me, how do you take your coffee each morning? If you decide to try adding Ceylon cinnamon for the next 7 days, come back and share what you notice: energy, cravings, waistline, focus. Your experience may encourage someone else to take their first step. And if you value calm, science-based guidance for healthy aging and longevity, make sure you subscribe and join this community.